Samaad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Ramacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktavindra ki jai. Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridham ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktavindra ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktavindra ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Nadia Gojumenitananda Mahajan. Nadia Gojumenitananda Mahajan. Hatya Chinam Hate Jibera Karan. Hatya Chinam Hate Jibera Karan. Shradhavan jan hai, Shradhavan jan hai. Shradhavan jan hai, Shradhavan jan hai. Prabhu aagai bhai magiye bhikha. Prabhu aagai bhai magiye bhikha. Bhajo Krishna Koro Krishna Shika. Bolo Krishna Bhajo Krishna Koro Krishna Shika. Aparara Shunna Hoy Loho Krishna Naam. Aparara Shunna Hoy Loho Krishna Naam. Krishna Mato Krishna Pito Krishna Dana Pran. Krishna Mato Krishna Pito Krishna Dana Pran. Krishna Samsara Goro Chariyana Cham. Krishna Samsara Goro Chariyana Cham. Vivedaya Krishna Nam Sarva Dharma Vivedaya Krishna Nam Sarva Dharma Shradhavan jan hai, Shradhavan jan hai. Shradhavan jan hai, Shradhavan jan hai. Nadia Gojumenitananda Mahajan. Nadia Gojumenitananda Mahajan. Hatya Chinam Hate Jibera Karan. Hatya Chinam Hate Jibera Karan. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram Ram Hare Hare,
treasure in the eyes of God and other human beings.
One thing I've noticed is that the Krishna temples have spread and are firmly rooted and solidly based. There are a number of them now. So that really is a very solid root. So I think that will continue.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering what future is there? What's the future of religious observance so technical as this, so complicated as this, requiring so much sophistication? How far can that spread?
The perception of what ISKCON was almost non-existent. It was just a few people in a storefront, and there was an Indian Swami lecturing, and that was about it. I don't think that they realized that it was anything more than that.
ISKCON began a small but dedicated group of followers who saw themselves as being very different from their surrounding cultures. And that was important, that was essential for the tradition to take root, because traditions like ISKCON that come into a new environment have a certain passion behind them to change the world around them. And that takes dedication and often a small group of people who are ready to put their hearts into doing something different. At the same time, that also creates a very strong distinction from the surrounding culture. But for a tradition to survive in the long term, it needs to integrate. Not integrate too much, otherwise it becomes lost in the surrounding culture, but integrate enough where a community can grow. It's not an isolated pocket, it's not an island. ISKCON has gone from a community of monks and full-time practitioners living in ashrams within temples to a much larger group of devotees who live and work in the world, but at the same time maintain their practice of Krishna consciousness.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Gurudev, and all glories to you all for being here. Hare Krishna. Shri Advaita Krishna Prabhu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. So, dear devotees, today we are very much blessed. We have His Grace Advaita Krishna Prabhu who will be speaking to us from the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. He needs no introduction. He's one of us. He is our big brother. So, Prabhuji, we're happy to have you. And if you're ready, we'll put the verse on the screen and you may begin.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Yep, much better. All right. So I can start, Prabhuji?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Supatantikam Namom Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So thank you very much for having me for today's afternoon to give this daily class, one of the daily class for Srimad Bhagavatam. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, Creation. The chapter is Appearance of Shukadeva Goswami, chapter 19, and the text today is 35. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narotamam Deving Saraswating Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudhirayet. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Neshtiki. Grantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Api me Bhagavan Pritha Krishna Pandu Sutta Priya Paitri Swaseya Prityartham Tadgotra Shata Bandavaha. Word meaning, api, definitely, me, unto me. Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Pritha, Pritaha, pleased. Krishna, the Lord. Pandu Sutta, the sons of King Pandu. Priyaha, dear. Petra, in relation with the father. Saseya, the sons of the sister. Priti, satisfaction. Artham, in the matter of. Tat, there. Gotrashya, of the descendant. Ata, accepted. Bandhavaha, as a friend. Translation. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousins and brothers. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. A pure and exclusive devotee of the Lord serves his family interest more dexterously than others who are attached to illusory family affairs. Generally, people are attached to family matters, and the whole economic impetus of human society is moving under the influence of family affection. Such deluded persons have no information that one can render better service to the family by becoming a devotee of the Lord. The Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee, even though such members are themselves non-devotees. Maharaj Prahlad was a great devotee of the Lord, but his father Hiranyakashipu was a great atheist and declared enemy of the Lord. But despite all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Maharaj Prahlad. The Lord is so kind that he gives all protection to the family members of his devotees. And thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members, even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, and Maharaj Parikshit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas. I'll read the text again. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousins and brothers. Hare Krishna. So it's in the context of Shukadeva Goswami coming by the arrangement of Krishna to deliver Parikshit Maharaj. And Parikshit Maharaj is very expertly explaining that it is arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, because of his friendly and familial relationship with Arjuna and Yudhishthira Maharaj, because they were the great cousins, the first cousin of Sri Krishna, because they are the children of Kunti Devi, and Kunti Devi and Vasudev, the father of Lord Krishna, they were brothers and sisters. So he is saying that Krishna is doing him a great favor. Why is doing him a great favor? Because of the relationship he had, the wonderful relationship that Krishna had with the Pandavas, which is the sons of King Pandu. And that's the reason that actually I'm getting the favor. So Srila Prabhupada develops this angle and saying that the pure and exclusive devotee of the Lord, they serve his family interest more dexterously than others. Sometimes in our through the years now, ISKCON is developing in a, I would say, in a more wholesome manner. It's taking its time. It's a movement that bringing cultural and social reforms. In the early days, we were abandoning our relatives and families and trying to be Krishna conscious because they were not very supportive of our move to join the Krishna consciousness movement. And some of us had to sometimes abandon family and sometimes mother and father and so on. But Srila Prabhupada is making a point here that if one is exclusive devotee of the Lord, main point being exclusive devotee of the Lord, mean that he doesn't make any, deviation. He doesn't entertain any other options. He doesn't entertain any other idea except that to be the servant of the Lord. He's exclusive in his relationship with the Supreme Lord. And therefore, such a devotee, he's able to serve the interest of the family as well. Right? Rather, those who are not working in that relationship, who are not serving in that relationship, who have no realization, have no desire, no impetus to develop that relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, those people, they have difficulty in the general economic impetus that is required to maintain the family. Generally, that's the main thing. When you have a family, you have economic responsibilities. Of course, you have sometimes, if you have some higher understanding, you think that you have some spiritual responsibilities. But generally in the world at large, people think that when you're a father, you're a mother, and you have kids, or sometimes you have siblings, then your responsibility is to provide. So the economic impetus under which the whole society is moving is very much emphasized. And Prabhupada is saying, but such deluded persons, they have actually no idea that if someone had to become a devotee of Krishna, he should not have any anxiety, because by becoming a devotee of Krishna, the family responsibilities will be fulfilled much better. I mean, this is kind of, for those who have experienced living in ISKCON or serving in ISKCON, this generally has not been the view. The view is we've abandoned our families, we've left them behind, and we are worrying about our own personal liberation or salvation, right? But here it gives a different angle. Just recently also, I was reading Maharaj Prithu's discussions, and also there the emphasis was laid out on material prosperity and spiritual prosperity, which is basically what is being presented here. So sometimes we think that to get spiritual prosperity, it has to be at the exclusion. If you want to get spiritual prosperity, it has to be at the exclusion of material prosperity. And it is said that, like in Christianity especially, it is said that a rich man can never attain the kingdom of God. So therefore, material prosperity and spiritual prosperity are mutually exclusive. This is generally also how we were taught in ISKCON too. You have to take kind of a vow of dedication, poverty, and just work for the movement, just work for the spiritual master, just work and serve the parampara, serve Srila Prabhupada, and you can forget about everything else. Till the point where our society become more and more integrated, we mainstream society, where we try to understand our relationship with our relatives, our parents, our siblings, and other members of our close family and even community as being an integral part of our growing in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is saying here, the Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee. Right? So it says, even though the members of themselves are not devotees. Prabhupada is quoting the example of Hiranyakashipu being a rascal, being a demon, being very anti-Lord Vishnu. But his son, Prahlad Maharaj, became a first-class devotee, and then he, upon his request, or even just by him being a devotee, Lord Vishnu actually blessed, Lord Nrsingadev blessed, Hiranyakashipu. So even though he was a great atheist, but despite of all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Prahlad Maharaj. So similarly here, our Parikshit Maharaj is saying that I'm getting the blessings here of Sukadeva Goswami, and I'm getting the blessings of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who has arranged for Sukadeva Goswami to come and talk to me because of my family connections, because of my relatives, because of my family connections, because I am the great-grandson or the grandson or great-grandson, grandson of Yudhishthira Maharaj and Arjuna. So the Lord gives, he says, and But despite all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Prahlad Maharaj. The Lord is so kind that he gave all protection to his family members of his devotee. And thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members. Even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, right? Because Lord Krishna's father is Vasudev and Kunti, they were brothers and sisters. And Maharaj Parikshit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas. So yes, Lord Krishna protected him, awarded him a second body in the womb of his mother, Uttara, when they were attacked by the powerful weapons of Vasvatthama, right? At the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, and he wanted to destroy the whole lineage of the Pandavas. But Krishna wanted this lineage of the Pandavas to carry on because he wanted very much to establish Dharma based upon the power and the purity of the saintly kings. Because that's how actually Krishna establishes the Dharma. He doesn't fight himself, but he makes others do the bidding for him. And he establishes society, he establishes principles of Varnashram Dharma. And the guardian of the principles of Varnashram Dharma is generally the saintly king. And therefore, once the saintly king is appointed, then he will encourage the principles of Karma Yoga to take effect in society properly, no matter whatever station of life one may be. One may be a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya. They will be encouraged to work in the spirit of devotion or in spirit of renunciation, whatever the level they may be in. They will be encouraged at least to follow the principles of Varnashram. And even though it may be external to devotional service, but then it guarantees a gradual progress. So Krishna says in the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita that all paths leading to spirituality are created by me. And then he gives on the explanation of this path of social and ashrama or the varnashram system, Chaturvarna system, Guna Karma Vibhagasa. So the king's responsibility is actually to create that principle of protection of the different levels of engagement of varnas in society. So first is varna, right? First is varna, because according to varna, the ashram will develop. So varna is actually the first thing that they're worried about. That's why it says varna, ashrama, dharma. So once varna and our dharma at work is clear, then we can see where we can be adequately, properly situated in ashrama. So the king becomes like the assistant of the Supreme Lord. That's why they're called Naradeva. They become assistant of the Supreme Lord in establishing the right order for progressive development of spiritual consciousness in society. So therefore, Parikshit Maharaj was protected for that main reason, that there needed to be a scion, there needed to be a heir, someone who will take up the work after Yudhishthira Maharaj was enthroned after the battle of Kurukshetra. Imagine if there was no one left in this dynasty, then that would be a great calamity, because the whole principle of that war was to have Yudhishthira Maharaj enthroned and remove the nonsensical associates and friends and brothers of Duryodhana. So there's two things here then, is how Krishna makes all this arrangement to be able to have Parikshit Maharaj, establish a kind of an order, and his reign was far and wide, very far-reaching, and even to some other subtle planetary systems that actually was not easily attainable even by Yudhishthira Maharaj. His kingdom went far and wide, and at the same time we can see that Prabhupada is talking about protection of the family by providing for the family, and that the economic impetus is better served if someone becomes a devotee. So then the question arises, like I've said, and I'm repeating it, does spiritual prosperity, can spiritual prosperity only be achieved exclusively at the expense of material prosperity, or can it go hand in hand? Let's discuss this a little bit more and see what are the examples that are given. We study in the 3rd canto of SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM the pastimes of Kardama Muni and Devahuti. And we also study in the 3rd canto the pastimes of Daksha. We also study the pastimes of Dhruva Maharaj in the 4th canto, Daksha in the 4th canto, and Dhruva Maharaj in the 4th canto, and then Prithu Maharaj. Now, these personalities, they're actually kings, they're actually great rulers, they're actually Prajapatis, and all that they're trying to do is do yajnas. And the yajnas are generally meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu, so that in their capacity as kings, they can get the blessings of the Supreme Lord so that the population is nicely maintained. The king's first priority is that everyone in society are getting all their needs and they're peacefully living. They are being fed, they're being protected, they're being clothed, and they have no fear of rogues and thieves, and they are nicely being taken care of. That's the first priority of the king. And once that is acquired, then slowly he will develop his other program of everyone acting properly according to the ashram, and everyone behaving correctly according to the ashrama, and everyone within that compass of varna and ashrama, then trying to dedicate their actions or help the king to dedicate their actions towards karma yoga. And depending on the advancement of the king, depending on the ability and the proclivity of the king, that will also be upgraded to devotional service. So these examples are very well explained in the 4th canto. So we will see that actually the need for material prosperity is very much also emphasized, which is sometimes, I had a lot of doubts some years back about this. No way. We don't need any material prosperity. We just need to worry about the soul. We need to worry about the spirituality, the spiritual prosperity. But when we study Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that actually this is very much emphasized. And the Supreme Lord himself, he benedicts. He gives benediction so that the earth is providing all the facilities. Dhruva Maharaj was glorified because he was such a great king. He protected his citizens. There was no famine, there was no disease, there was no great wars, and the women were respected, the children were respected, the elderly people, there was Vridha Sevaka, they were being properly cared for. So therefore, this material prosperity very much emphasized. So when there is no material prosperity, then actually there is a want, there's a lack. And therefore, in terms of family, in terms of the economic impetus for the different people to actually take to spiritual life can be a handicap. So it's not necessarily something that bothers too much the higher hierarchy, the upper class personalities and the upper varnas, especially the Brahmana. The Brahmana, he wants to expand his knowledge, spiritual knowledge. He wants to expand his Brahmagyan. So then he is not so concerned. But the Kshatriya, unless he's expanding his influence, he's not considered successful. That's why the idea of the Kshatriya is always expanding, conquering, is part of their very impetus, is part of the very quality, the proclivity that is required by them. And the Vaishya, unless he is increasing his wealth, he's not performing very well, because he has exclusive responsibility to produce wealth, so that the wealth produced can be taken in part by the king and redistributed to those who don't have, in terms of taxes, right? And the Shudras, they are also encouraged to develop their skills. They're also encouraged to develop their ability to create, their ability to assist, their ability to produce, their ability for music, for very specific skills. They're also encouraged to develop that. And they're glorified because of that. And they're provided everything in because of that. So when you look at the responsibilities of the Varnas, don't we feel that actually the Supreme Lord wants to have a prosperous society? Why wouldn't he? If he considers that we are all his children, he wants us to live in a nice, clean environment. He wants us to live with all our needs met adequately. He also wants us to live very happily, very peacefully, in a nice environment, in a nice health, eat nice, healthy foods, have nice, healthy relationships, you know, have adequate sleep, adequate eat, adequate food to eat, and also some recreation. He wants that because that's what it is said in the Gita also. Because unless someone eats properly, someone sleeps properly, and unless someone has some recreation, he will not be able to perform yoga. So this is my angle on this class. I was thinking like that when I read this, and I was thinking, because generally my first impetus is, well, no, unless you become miskinchana gochara, completely impoverished and have nothing, you cannot practice Krishna consciousness. But all these fabulous stories of kings, whether it is also Daksha, whether it is Prithu Maharaj, whether it is Dhruva Maharaj, or whether it is Yudhishthir Maharaj or Arjuna, and the people, the Parshadas and the devotees doing pastimes in Dwarka with Krishna, they were all full of great, great opulences. So this was being exhibited. So if someone becomes a devotee of Krishna, then Krishna does help. Krishna does help. And we've seen practically that those the children of the devotees who are going to college or going to study, they actually do better than most of the non-devotee kids. And they attain better results. And they are more peaceful. And they're more attractive. They have brighter face. And then they do better materially. But unfortunately, we don't have quite an understanding about these things. And then we sometimes tend to not lay too much emphasis on this. But if you are quite nicely balanced materially and we are balanced spiritually, Krishna would want that very much for us. Just like a father would want to have his children nicely maintained, at the same time, never lose the vision of eternity, never lose this nivritti marg, even though we may be in pravritti, engaged positively in varna and ashrama, even though it is not fully functional, but the quality of work of the different classes of men in society roughly fits into these different varnas and different ashramas. So Krishna is actually more pleased if we act according to our abilities, our aptitude, our guna and our karma, and we can do better. We can do better. There's no such thing in Krishna consciousness as not being able to be Krishna conscious because of the type of work we do, unless it is ugra karma. Because Krishna says, Yat karosi, yajad nasi, yad duhosi, tatat, yat tapashasi, tupanti, yatat kurushamodapanam. The most important verse of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita is Manmanabhava Madbhaktu. Become my devotee. By doing these simple things. And then whatever we're doing, we make it as an offering to him. So material prosperity will follow spiritual prosperity. And generally, if you look at the different planetary systems, those who have higher spiritual advancement they have high material prosperity. If you look at Brahmalok, very advanced spiritually. Then if you look at Maharlok, great personalities with so much mystic power, so much knowledge, and so much of all the material opulences, very advanced, also spiritually, right? Very advanced. And also in the, and also in the Swarga, in the heavenly planets. But there's a distinction. There's a distinction. That Uttama Bhakti, pure devotional service, is a different matter altogether. So when our devotional service are mixed and they are not completely free of jnana or karma, anavritta means free of jnana and karma, then we don't reach Uttama Bhakti. But that's a different matter altogether. I'm talking generally for most of society. Most of society will go step by step from Sakama Karma Yoga to Nishkama Karma Yoga to Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti, then to Bhakti per se, without trying to now uncover the Nivritti mark, becoming free of all inebrities and progress on the path of Vaidhi Bhakti, gradually progressing to become to the platform of Nishtha. And after the platform of Nishtha, then mixed with Raganuga Bhakti and Vaidhi Bhakti, we can progress. Why am I also saying this? And I'm looking at, because when Krishna says in the 6th chapter of the Gita that the unsuccessful yogi or such a person, when he is in an advanced stage and he did not attain perfection, or an unsuccessful yogi in the beginning stage when he's not able to attain perfection, he is born in two categories. The very advanced yogi, he is born in the family of Vaishnavas or aristocratic people, and he takes to the progress to making sure that he progresses in spiritual life. And the not successful yogi, what he does? There's a verse, yeah? Prapya punya kritam lokam. It's a bit small for me. Let me increase it. It's okay. Yeah. Usitva sashvati samaha suchinam shimatam gehe yoga brasta vijayate. We'll go down a bit to read the translation. The unsuccessful yogi, after many, many years of enjoyment on the planets of the past living entity, is born into a family of righteous people or into a family of rich aristocracy. And further on in the details, Prabhupada explained that those who are on the Yoga Ruddha or Yoga Ruruksha platform, there's two different levels. So then what does that mean? That the person, he did not succeed in his spiritual attainment, but he's giving material prosperity. And from there on, also spiritual prosperity or possibility of spiritual prosperity. I know this can be a very controversial thing I'm saying, but it's a nice point to discuss in this class. So let's analyze, for example, the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj, when he came after the death of Vena, who was cursed by the Brahmanas, and he had to leave his body, they churned his body and they created Bahuka, who was representing all the evil things from his body, and then they created from the right-hand side Prithu Maharaj, from the left-hand side they created Mother Archie. And then Prithu Maharaj very much wanted all his citizens to be properly fed. And he chased off the mother cow, who was representing earth and everything that is situated upon the surface of Mother Earth, rivers, trees, mountains, oceans, everything that's situated upon her. And he wanted to make sure that all these different agencies present on the surface of the body of Mother Earth are giving all the valuable things for the prosperity of the citizens, right? We know that story. So he actually wanted to actually chastise, and he was chasing with bow and arrow Mother Earth because she had hidden within her in subtle forms all the grains and all the seeds. So therefore, there was not enough production of food produce. and the population was emaciated and they were almost starving. That's number one. Then he also saw that the rivers were not giving this sarvarasan, all the different rasas and taste that when combined with the plants and the earth produces all the wonderful taste. That was not happening. And then the mountains were not giving all the minerals and the different chemicals that when the rain would come after the production of sacrifice, then all these rains will, all these rich ingredients will leach into the agricultural plains and then allow the production of wonderful, fruits and flowers. And then there was no flowering plants and no fruits, and therefore the bees were not producing honey. And then the sea was not giving, gems and jewels. So therefore, what did he do? He milked the Mother Earth. And he summoned all the great personalities to come. Just like a cow will give milk when it is in the presence of its calf. So Prithu Maharaj, he summoned Swayambhuva Manu to be the calf, and in his presence, Maharaj Prithu himself milked Mother Earth to be able to get all the food grains and all the seeds that was kept in the hand, which was a pot dohanam. So like that. So why did he do that? Why couldn't he say, okay, we are all starving, great. We don't have to worry. We can all go to the forest and we can all just practice dhyana and then we can live. No, he actually wanted to create a system where everyone was fed nicely, everyone had plenty of, and then the Prithu Maharaj's yagyas, Prithu Maharaj's exquisite manner of dealing, his gentle behavior, he actually managed to create so much prosperity that everyone was very happy. Lord Brahma came, he was very happy with him. Lord Vishnu even came, and Lord Vishnu even sent afterwards the Sanat Kumars to actually preach to him about spiritual life, the end of the part of where he actually is given pure devotional service. So great material prosperity, then followed by great spiritual attainment by Maharaj Prithu, and it set the example. You go in detail into that chapter, we will see that's very nice. And what did also Parikshit Maharaj do? Same thing. He was personally going around checking all the different quarters in his kingdom, not sending ambassadors and high commissioners. Personally on his chariot, he would drive and would go and see if everything is being taken care of. And when everything was being taken care of or not. And his praja, everyone who was born within his realm, his citizens, plants, insects, birds, animals, humans, everyone who he considered citizen are being taken care of properly. So that's a first element of compassion when we see that. So when a devotee, he leaves everything and he goes into the ashram, like it was the case, in the early 80s or in the late 70s when we all joined, then that created a bit of an uproar, because we felt like we are giving up a good jobs, good education, and we are running after, some weird newly founded movement of Krishna consciousness. So then many of us still, the training was, don't worry anything about material life. And I think many of us still think, I'm not saying material life, I'm saying material prosperity. Many of us still think that these things are not important. Yes, they're not important in the sense that this is not our goal. It's not our goal. But if we try to become devotees of Krishna, then Krishna will provide all the other things. And this is what it is said here, that even for those who are not family members, even for those who are not devotees, that the part of your family member, Krishna will provide for them. Prabhupada gives the example of Hiranyakashipu and Prahlad Maharaj. So it's a point to reflect. It's a point to reflect. So the sincere devotee, he will be encouraged he's exclusive devotee of Krishna, he will be encouraged to give more emphasis to his spiritual life. His vision is different. His vision is he wants to attain the lotus feet of Krishna. He is not pursuing his life to get all kinds of wonderful facilities for enjoyment. His main priority is to serve Krishna. He may be in situations that doesn't look like he wants to serve Krishna. Just like when you look at the situation of Bhishma, it didn't look like he was very much in a situation where it had anything to do with his service because he was in Dasyaras to Krishna. But that was his service. And his main service as a Mahajan was to serve the lotus feet of Krishna. His main emphasis in his life was like that. But he was in a camp with people, associating with people who were not so inclined. So a devotee can be in any situation, but his emphasis will be, I want to serve Krishna. But my situations don't look very appetizing, don't look very conducive, don't look very corroborative with my aim. But the devotee doesn't change his aim. But if these material prosperities does make the devotee changes his focus, then Krishna might interfere and take away material prosperities. That is not a blanket rule that Krishna will either take away everything or give everything. It's on a case-to-case basis, depending on our own proclivity and our own tendency. Krishna will make arrangement as per what is required. For some, he will encourage material prosperity, and he will also, in the end, give them great facility to be devotees. Because Krishna does say in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam tahapahita chetasaka yavasadvika buddhi samad. Those who have too much material opulence and too much bhoga, too much desire for sense gratification, the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. But in general, for society, if ISKCON had to go the direction of just creating sadhus and sadhus and sadhus, we'll be like the Benedictine monk, and we will not know much influence of societies. Just like the different ashrams in the Christian system, I don't know, we call them what? Monasteries. What influence do they have in mainstream society? Maybe some of you can speak on that later, you know. But here we are looking at a wholesome structure of society, where by the blessings of Krishna, by the arrangement of the saintly kings, Krishna is providing all material facilities, and at the same time, the Brahmanas are doing the kings are providing the material facilities and making sure dharma is followed, and the Brahmanas who are guiding the kings, making sure that everything is so nicely done that people are progressing spiritually. So Krishna will look after the devotee, material interest, if he has to, while ensuring his spiritual prosperity. That's the essence of that verse to a point. And he did that for Parikshit Maharaj, right? In the end, he sent Sukadeva Goswami, because Sukadeva Goswami is saying, not that I deserve it. He's doing that as a favor to me because he was related to my grandfathers. He was related to Yudhishthira and Arjuna. That's why he's doing it. But nevertheless, Krishna is doing it. So he's looking after his spiritual prosperity, his spiritual progress. So that's all I can derive from this so far. So I will stop here. And if any of you have some reflections, I'll be happy to hear. And I recognize some of our old friends here. Shriman Varahacharya Prabhu is here. And some other devotees we've...
Alika is here too.
That's here?
Yes, Alika Prabhu. Yes, dear devotees, if anyone has a question or comment, commentary, realizations that you want to share on this topic, please you may indicate by using the hand emoji or using your physical hand. I'll be asked to unmute and you speak. Prabhu, today's class is It's very powerful, very important. And I say it's very important because it's quite controversial. It shouldn't be, but unfortunately it is, because like you rightly said, especially those of you who joined the movement very early. I mean, I didn't join very early, but even at the time that I joined, that was the teachings that you have to shun everything material and just surrender to Krishna. You were not even, I wouldn't say encouraged, even if you wanted to visit your blood relations, relatives, you were discouraged.
Very much so.
Yeah, lots of early devotees burned the material educational credentials. And what is the use of these things? I mean, we are human beings and we say to err is human. So my problem is, like you also indicated in your lecture, that even at this point in our devotional life, some of these old devotees still hold on to this notion that one should give up anything, everything material and just surrender to Krishna, which I find it very difficult to accept, because I do not think that is what Krishna or Srila Prabhupada intends us to do. So I would like you to, I mean, you've already spoken much about it, but I still would want you to speak a bit much on why.
Yeah, I get your point.
Why
it's like
things? Yeah. Okay, please.
See, when in the initial days devotees did do that, you see the families fell apart. And even those who got married, marriage did not hold. And the children did not become great devotees. Because why? Because there was not a good balance. There was not a good balance. You cannot force, you cannot coerce your children or your wives or your husbands or whoever may be, or the families, to actually take to Krishna consciousness. That is a natural process. You can give the education, you can give the emphasis in the morning program, and you can set by an example that people will do what they want to do. So therefore, your responsibility for caring for them materially, if you're related to them, it still falls on you. But then you do it at the detriment of their spiritual advancement, because it is not properly paced. And we saw the result of those not being properly paced. Now, in Mauritius, for example, or in other countries also, we see that many devotees or congregation devotees, they keep their job, they keep their children are going to school, and they're slowly progressing towards spiritual life, and they don't have so much chaos in the family structure. They don't have so much broken relationship with the children, the wives, and so many divorce, and so on and so forth. But they're progressing all right. But I think in the beginning, that emphasis was laid there because we did not have a huge congregation, and therefore the devotees were mostly encouraged to give up everything and to fight for the cause of the Krishna consciousness movement. We were small units, we were small yatras, we were struggling with everything, and all hands on deck was a philosophy, so to speak. So I think it was a utilitarian principle. It was not necessarily a kind of a spiritual, it was a utilitarian principle which was masqueraded as the ultimate spiritual principle. I feel like that. I think it is like that because from the practical experience, some very great personalities came out of that system who managed to surrender under the aegis of His Divine Grace, under the stewardship of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And they did very well, but we also had a large amount of failure rates because it was not possible to jump from a life of Tamagun to a life of Sattvagun and to a life of transcendence. it is generally a gradual process. It is generally a process of slowly upgrading ourselves through the years, and as the mode of passion and ignorance slowly diminishes by the practice of Krishna consciousness, and also by the maturity of age, we can situate ourselves on the mode of goodness, and then practice devotional service in the mode of goodness. We can be practicing devotional service. I'm not saying that we are not practicing devotional service. I'm saying we are practicing devotional service with our proper care and knowledge. Sometimes we were giving up things that we were not able to really give up, in fact, right? And we are going around in circles. But if we had a proper system of Devi Varnashram and a proper system where everyone was participating nicely in Krishna consciousness. That's why also parallel-wise, you know, Sahadev Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada wanted to create those farming communities. Why do you think he wanted to create those farming communities in the beginning? Because he wanted that prosperity, he wanted simple living, but he wanted them to be engaged in a way that they will have everything they needed, cows and food and clothing and basic needs are there. And then we can also practice Krishna consciousness. But it didn't work because of why? Because the tendencies of the people that were involved, we were brought up in cities, we were brought up in material education, we were brought up with a vision to become this and that in material life, and then suddenly just make a 180-degree turn and go down to agriculture. It didn't work. It didn't work. The main reason that the farming communities is still now we have land and it's not going, because the tendency of the people, we were brought up in a system that did not give much value, did not give much credibility, did not give much, you know, understanding of an agrarian system of living. So therefore it failed.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
It's just reflections, you know. This is a very difficult topic to analyze, but we are doing it like a post-mortem of the situation, you know, and at the same time looking to, now we are a little bit more mature and more understanding of principles of Bhagavatam and all of that. So therefore we are able to see it. But I'm not proposing a solution to anything, but I think it's good to have some reflections.
For sure.
So yes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, like you rightly said, it's a person-to-person basis. There is no general answer to anything. So Shimavara Prabhu, please you may unmute.
Thank you, Shimavara Prabhu. Nice to see you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Please accept my
Accept my.
Prabhuji, your audio is not quite clear. Shimavara Prabhu.
Okay, I'll try. Is it better now?
A little bit. You may go ahead and speak.
Just 1 minute. Is it better now?
Still not better.
Right. All right.
How about now?
Much better, yes.
Okay, fine.
Yes.
So, so on the topic of reflection, I'd like to make some 3 points. One is that what type of society Srila Prabhupada created? If I can quote him very well, he did say that he's creating a Brahminical society, because that is what he saw to be lacking. Second point is the examples you gave, Prabhu, about how to develop a prosperous community or societies, and all the examples you gave from Bhagavatam, they were all kings. They are not Brahmanas. They were all kings acting in their role as Kshatriyas. So, and that example does not really fall in place, thinking about Prabhupada's intention to create a Brahmanical society. And then the third point is why is this, there's a dichotomy about, what we're supposed to be doing, how we started, and where we're going. So there is this confusion, which is not yet cleared. And like from what you have said, some senior devotees still feel that we should give up everything. It's not like they're making any mistake. It's just along the line, the teachings of Prabhupada and the goal of life, right? But my guru said something in one of his books, Leadership, that societies are created in different ways. So societies that are created by accident, societies that are created due to disaster, refugee camps become society, communities, and societies that are created by design. Now, our ISKCON society, so far, we haven't seen that much of design. We haven't seen that much of design because there's design, along the line. You would see that Brahmanas will be happy doing whatever they're doing without being, agitated about having material needs, and they feel comfortable in the community, right? And then the Vaishyas know that this is their role, taking care of the farm and then generating, resources and so on. So we don't have a design, and because of lack of design in place, so there is a kind of topsy-turvy of roles, and then a confusion, and then we're thinking that this foundation was wrong. No, Prabhupada had it clear and clearly stated out, but the implementation along the line is what is giving us problem. This is my point of view, that ISKCON is not developing based on design at all. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, I kind of agree with you. Okay, I'll take the I make some comments on this, Prabhu. Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Yeah, like when you said Brahminical society. If purely he wanted Brahminical society, then why is half of ISKCON still harping on about Varnashram system? We should just shelve it completely. But there's a word that is used to describe Parikshit Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, Brahmanyu. And when we say Namo Brahmanya Devaya, which means one is lover of the Brahmins and the Brahminical culture. So now we are rethinking it, right? I'm just reflecting on it, Varaprabhu, and you can add or subtract to it also. So I'm reflecting on this, that actually Brahmanya means one who is very much wanting to promote Brahminical culture. But Brahminical culture doesn't mean that everyone becomes a Brahmana, everyone becomes a Vaishnava, but the dharma at work will always be according to your Varna. So that will be a utopian society, to have a Brahminical society where everyone is a Brahmana, because in effect, Krishna has created 4 Varnas. So was that a preaching tool to encourage everyone to surrender because that was a utilitarian principle needed, all hands on deck? If that wasn't, then why does Prabhupada further on says 50% of my work is not done and I want Varnashram? So that's one reflection, Prabhu. The second reflection is society created by design, accident or disaster. I think of ours has been created on utilitarian principles, what was needed. So I think adjusted, but with the designs, still now the designs are not clear. Do we want Varnashram system or do we want a Brahminical society? But designs is clear. I don't think so. And just recently I had an example. I won't take names. Just recently I had an example. Sometimes when someone gets a position of an authority, I hope I can make that things very clear. And someone, say, for example, becomes a guru or becomes a sannyasi, becomes a powerful authority, then he tends to think that he can give advice in any field or subject matter. But it isn't so. It isn't so. Say, for example, you have a spiritual authority and he's your guru, and you want to buy a car. You go and ask him what is the best car to buy. But neophytes devotees do say, my spiritual master told me to buy this car. And I would ask the spiritual master, a mechanic. You follow what I'm saying? So it's like, so this point of, but then, because we cover ourselves with our designation as an authority, as a sannyasi, or whatever, we tend to think that because I am given the authority and the respect, I am able to deliver on that level. Not necessarily. Not necessarily you can deliver on that level. Because if you have a tendency to be more a Sankirtan devotee, then you will promote Sankirtan in the yatra. If you're more of a person who has Vaishya tendency, you will develop maybe more cow protection in the yatra, even though you may be sannyasi. And if you're truly have Brahminical qualities, then you will develop more of the teaching and the qualities associated with that kind of work. And if you're more into management and controllership, then you will want to be into managerial system, even if you're a sannyasi. So then how do you qualify that? How do you qualify that? In which direction you go? Like even in the olden days, if you had a temple president who is very much Sankirtan leader, when he takes reign of the temple, he will promote Sankirtan. And if he is into puja, Pujari temple president, he will lay emphasis on the deity worship. So what was it then? By design? I hardly think so. So I think that in all honesty, we want all of us to become Krishna conscious, all the devotees, all the people who are coming to our congregation in Krishna consciousness movement, we want them to become devotees, but they're all working in different positions and different situations. And therefore, I feel that the dharma at work is not being properly propped up, is not being properly explained in clear terms, and how they can become devotees despite being a person working in the bank. They can become a devotee despite being, like the question was answered by Giriraj Maharaj to our friend Sahadev. If his family is in the path of Krishna consciousness, then him going to work as a nurse is not against any principles of Krishna consciousness. But that wasn't what we were told in the beginning, Sahadev. Was that what we were being told? No, that's what I'm saying. So, Varaha Prabhu, you can come on this. What do you think, therefore? Brahmanya, my point of Brahmanya is respect for Brahminical culture and develop society according to Brahminical principles. The society is accident, disaster, or design, I would say utilitarian. Yeah, and the implementation is because implementation very much is not the job of the Brahmana. Implementation very much is a job of the Kshatriya. Implementation very much is a job of the Kshatriya, based on spiritual principles enunciated and clearly delineated and presented by the Brahmanas. So most of the time, yeah, we do fail because it's very difficult to get good Kshatriyas. And generally, when someone has an authority position, he may have his dharma at work, can be Shudra, can be Vaishya, can be anything. But when they have an authority, they will act like they have the answer to everything. And therefore, the implementation always suffer in our Krishna consciousness movement. Plans and strategy abound. Vision is very clear. Srila Prabhupada has written so many books, so the vision is very clear. But we do suffer when it comes to implementation because of this one principle that given a power and position and authority, we think that we can handle it, but it is not our varna to handle it, so we can't handle it.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Shumavara Prabhu, you want to speak? Please, you may go ahead.
All right. Is my voice okay?
Yes.
Yes, Prabhu, we can hear you.
All right. So I'm trying to see a situation. Prabhupada actually had a clear vision, and I believe in his vision. And I think, he has a perfect vision. He knew what he wanted, right? But the continuity has been the problem. I'm trying to see a situation.
Wait a minute. Let me repeat what you said so I understand. You said Prabhupada has a definite, clear vision. Yeah, I agree with you. But you're saying he wanted to establish Brahminical?
Yeah, let me go ahead about that.
No, I didn't understand it. That's why. Can you?
Yeah, so I'm saying that he did say that what is lacking in the society is the Brahmana class, and the head is not there. So he wants to put the head in place, and the Brahmana, those who can think for the society.
Yeah.
So if we have a proper strategy, like you said, there are strategies abound, but I really still don't see it, because strategy means you have to implement them also, you know. So, so if we have the right strategy in place, you would think that after many years of even along the line, we don't even need many years, along the line of our Christian activities, we recruit people, or people join, and we see their tendencies. Preachers, you know, there are devotees who have been doing Sankirtan for almost 50 years, you know, and they're going on, still doing it. So that you can see devotees of different tendencies. What is the society doing to, you know, develop that into a foundation? So if we see devotees who are, you know, who have the tendency for vice activity, what are we doing to create that kind of foundation? So people don't fit in, and then they step out. But yes, Varashram means that we have different ways. Prabhupada, that's part of the vision of Prabhupada, because he knew that different type of people are going to come. And when they come,
it's also natural, no, Varaha Prabhu. It's also natural. Society is not made of Brahmanas. It's made of 4 categories. Yeah.
Sure. But then our Prabhupada accent is having a nucleus of Brahmanical society that will instruct and guide others. So those who join, that we find that these are their tendencies. Now, I give you the example. There are devotees who have gradually gone into, they join, you know, let's say the Brahmanical society that Prabhupada founded. And noticing their tendency, they come back to business, right? But I'm saying that neither the Brahmanical nor this the Vaishya are being strengthened. Because if we have a plan or a strategy that gradually is supposed to help each group to evolve to become a nucleus, then the Varashram will take place naturally. But there is a discrimination, and there is a lack of interest in developing, you know, each of these ashram or varnas in a vibrant manner. So we have devotees taking independent decision to go back to business, to go get job, because it is not seen as something necessary. So we neither have strong Brahmanical foundation, neither do we have strong congregational foundation to encourage different varnas. So I'm saying that we lack design. We may say that we have started, but we lack design.
I agree we lack design. That's why I said, I agree with you, we lack design, because that's why I said it was more utilitarian, which means whatever needed to be done with whatever means, whatever hands on deck, that was done. So, but the vision of Srila Prabhupada, the vision of Srila Prabhupada is clear. I agree with you, Brahmanya, right? But like I said, we always fail on implementation. We always not fail, but we always sort of capitulate, or we always stutter on
implementation. Like you said, these things are becoming so clear. But even now, you remember this discussion, Varaha Prabhu, when Gurudev said that if we wanted to create the Varnashram system, we'll end up creating a caste system. You remember that discussion?
Please, can you repeat that? My attention was there.
Gurudev said that if we wanted to create Varnashram at this point, we will end up creating a horrible caste system. So, yeah, that's a good discussion. There's no finality to our discussion, but it's a good brain teaser, and also studying it from Shastra. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Anyone? Okay, Chaitanya Prema Prabhu, please, you may unmute. It's interesting how some devotees
Hare Krishna
prefer to use names other than their initiated names. in a sangha like that.
There's a different social media guru now giving a third initiation.
Agree with you. So TechnoSpark, please unmute and go ahead.
Chaitanya Prem Prabhu.
Hare
Very good.
Krishna.
Yes.
I want to offer my humble obeisances to all the great Vaishnavas here and Vaishnavis too. This is a very beautiful topic, and it is relevant because we are all inside it. But I want to humbly appeal that we should delete the word mistake, because the pure devotees, they are expert in applying devotional principles according to time, place, and circumstances.
Yes, sure.
And whatever was needed at that particular time to pioneer the movement is what they did. And at that time, those who joined, are expected to give in more sacrifice. Even the Christian missionaries, those who were coming early, some of them sacrificed their lives in many ways. Some were killed. Many things happened before finally they got established here and there. So I just want us to delete that word mistake. That there was never a mistake in the approach. Whatever they did was the utilitarian principle and a situational approach to the whole thing. So it was right as far as I can understand. And those of us that were lucky enough to, do that sacrifice, we did it because that was what we also needed to take us to the next level. So now that the environmental forces are changing, and we are seeing that we need to adapt, then we also just have to learn how to adapt and thank the Param for bringing us in at that time of total sacrifice. So,
and if you ask devotees whether they would want to change what they experienced because of the sacrifice, all of them will tell you, no, they were the best part of my life.
Prabhuji, if I may come in, Chaitanya Prabhu, in what context are you talking about mistake that you wanted deleted?
It's like there's an impression that I'm getting that some devotees are thinking that the approach at that time, Guru gave them approach, everybody surrender, leave everything, your education and everything, family, and come and be full-time devotee. Some devotees are thinking that was a mistake. That approach was wrong. They are thinking like that.
No, it was utilitarian.
I
think it was utilitarian. It was needed. At that time, it was practical application for all practical purposes. That was what was needed. And even Prabhupada knew giving sannyas in those days, he would have some disasters, but he nevertheless moved forward because that was needed. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, thank you, Chaitanya Prabhu. Well, Prabhuji, while I accept, personally, that, yes, it's a utilitarian principle, and that what some gurus or senior devotees did and said in the early stages of devotional service of this movement were things that were needed at the time. There is also the fact and the reality that lots of mistakes were done. And I do not see why we should shy away from accepting mistakes. As if when we become a devotee, we are no more humans, that we can no more make mistakes. It is said that to err is human. So there are many things devotees in position of leadership did which were wrong. It was not a matter of utilitarian principle. It was just a matter of they assuming that if you did this, is wrong. And so don't do it. And there are certain things which are kind of too gross. I cannot say it here. But if in those days, the early days, if a devotee loses his father or mother, it never happened anywhere other than our zone in West Africa, I believe. I'm in the USA, I never heard any time where somebody said that he lost a family member and Sri Prabhupada or the senior devotee said, you cannot go. But that's what we were told.
No, it was everywhere,
Not
Prabhu.
so.
It was everywhere. I give you one example of this, just to cut the, sorry to cut your conversation.
Okay.
There was one friend of mine, he's a Prabhupada disciple, and he was living in Italy. And he was doing service. And his mother had passed away. And the temple authority saw him doing his service. And then news came that his mother had passed away. And the temple president did not give him the news. And he gave him the news the next day. And he said, when did you get that news? He said, yesterday. He said, why didn't you give it to me? He said, because you are engaged in service. And because of that, he left the movement. He left the temple. He left. Because he was very close to his mother. So yes, these kinds of things we've done, but to not create more controversy where controversy is not due, I would say this is just generally the behavior of Kanishta. Yeah. So if you put it under that category, the behavior of people who have no clear understanding of the knowledge of devotional service on how to act properly in a new culture, then these mistakes are in inherent part of the process. So yes, mistakes were there, they were inherent part of the process, but I think the main reason for that is immaturity and inability to understand the principles of the vast and deep principles of devotional service. Even nowadays, we only know a bindu, a drop of it. So can you imagine in the beginning? Yeah, those were practical mistakes. I think practical mistakes, but the direction of the movement was not going in the wrong way, I wouldn't say. But day-to-day practical things we did not know how to deal with. Like sometimes you're giving classes and you're blasting away at high-class people, things like that. Yeah, those things were definitely, because we were young and immature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the definition of the word mistake is here: an action or judgment that is misguided or wrong. It's as simple as that. And so if somebody takes an action or makes judgment based on misguided or wrong ideas, then it's a mistake. But even those, and I'm one of such few people who went through devotional life like that, I do not feel hurt because I understand that the intention behind those mistakes were not to hurt me.
Yes, yes.
They were to help me. But the person who was at the head of affairs making these decisions didn't get it right. But the intention was not to hurt me. But we should not also be afraid to admit that such mistakes were made. Well, but before we even move on, there is another important, I think I saw Kavikanda Prabhu's hand up. Are you still here?
Yeah, let's take him on.
Yeah, maybe we'll take him and before I come to my question. Kavikanda Prabhu, if you're here, you may unmute.
Yes, Prabhu. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you very much. It's just regarding the conversation that is going on. So I just want to ask a question regarding the discussion. Like,
can you turn on your camera, please? Is it possible?
Okay,
and the volume.
Yeah, okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now, Prabhu?
We can hear
you. Better, a bit better.
Okay. Yeah, so my question is regarding the conversation that is going on. So like Prabhu was saying, Chaitanya Prabhu was saying, and also you was talking about, yes, mistake is a mistake. So my question is that we know all what happened that time also was due to whatever has happened. But the thing is that now some of the old devotees, they still holding very tight to those early ideologies about devotional service. I remember when we were doing GBC college. Am I audible?
It's kind of blurry, but we can hear you. Not very clear, but we can hear you.
Let me remove my Bluetooth.
Okay, this is much better.
I was using Bluetooth, so.
Okay,
so like regarding the conversation that was going on. So I was just saying that, yes, there was mistake, there was a good intention in doing them, but I'm still observing that some of the early devotees, old devotees, who happen to still be in the high position, they still believe that those things that they did in the early days are still, that if you are trying to change them, it's like you are going against Srila Prabhupada's movement. I remember when we were doing a GBC college, and His Grace Kaunteya Prabhu and all the wonderful devotees in GAV there, and they were trying to kind of educate the devotee about, how to expand the movement and proper management and all these things. And to my biggest surprise, whenever we leave the classroom and we go behind and we're having some individual discussion, I hear all these senior devotees talking, like, who are these guys who think that they can just change Prabhupada's movement? This is not how Prabhupada taught us. And in my mind, I'll just be laughing that what is going on? We are in new age, what is going on? Why are these people still holding to this, all this, their old ideology, So I want Advaita Krishna Prabhu to please throw more light on this, even though mistake has been made, okay, the mistake were made with good intention, but some of them they see already very tight that it's the right thing to do, and they even though now they are not saying it, but they are not giving up that idea also. So it's very difficult for them to even to preach at the present situation now. They are not preaching. They only preach to hold devotee. They are not preaching to new people because they still hold very tight to that ideology. So please, I don't know.
I think we haven't really understood. To understand the principles of devotions, Lord Chaitanya, when he was talking to Raghunath Bhattacharya or Raghunath Bhatt, or some, I just was recently reading when he was staying with in Jagannath Puri, he was talking and he said, before actually, Vallabha Bhatt. And he said to Vallabha Bhatt, he was quoting different verses to him, and then he said, Rupa Goswami also, who was there, and they were staying there, and he was encouraging them to go to Vrindavan, and then later on he took them to to teach them the principles of devotional service. He said the ocean of understanding the principles of devotional service, it's impossible. It is so big. So if anyone says that, they are not making mistakes, it means that they have actually completely mastered Srila Prabhupada books. And we cannot master Srimad Bhagavatam. We're always a student and we're always learning things in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And unless someone is completely has a rich personal samadhi type experience of devotional service, just like Vyasadeva did, or Srila Prabhupada, Upadekshantite Jnanam, he has seen the truth. He has an experience of the truth. Unless you have that kind of person who has an experience of the truth. What does that mean? Upadekshantite Jnanam, Jnaninas Tattva Darshina. He has seen the truth, not seen physically, not seen just with the eyes, but he has a personal experience of the truth, just like Vyasadeva is going into Samadhi and seeing the absolute truth, and then he prepares himself to write the Srimad Bhagavatam. So unless you have some people who are on that level, they will make mistakes. Because that means that you're dependent on, Karipata, you're dependent on the 4 mistakes of the conditioned living being.
So that person, even though he may be quoting Shastra, he may be quoting Srila Prabhupada, he may be quoting Srila Prabhupada books, he may be still understanding it wrong. Because the four mistakes of the conditioned souls are there. So unless someone is 100%, on that level of having experience of the truth, has seen the truth, and he speaks on behalf of the truth, then he doesn't speak with mistake. So anyone in ISKCON who says that he cannot do mistake because he's repeating Prabhupada's word, you may not understand his word properly.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. I love the answer. Shriman,
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to contribute something in relation to Kavikanapura's question. Generally, we have people with different kind of psychophysical dispositions. Here is a situation we have some set of people who are called liberal optimizers. And we also have the conservatives. And by extension, we have the inactivists, we have the reactivists, we have the interactivists, and we have the proactivists. These are four different, types of psychophysical dispositions. And everyone cannot be on the same level. One psyche is that it doesn't, for instance, the reactivists, they don't respond to opportunities. They respond to threats. And they hold on to the old way of doing things. And to them, any new changes, any addition, any adjustment is like a deviation. Therefore, they don't accept it. They stand by it, and they are actually needed to preserve and protect the nucleus of any particular, any kind of practice. So those people are there. And we should not expect them to change, because since by nature they are not liberal optimizers, that they are conservatives, they have their right to remain conservatives. Understand? Then the liberal optimizers should respect those people's psychophysical disposition and to see how we can do things based on some principles that can be denominators, that can unify the different varieties. So this is what I think. So those people are not wrong. I want to say that those who are thinking like that, who cannot change, like Okonkwo in Things Fall Apart, it could not change. But it's a man, it's a man of character. His inability not to change, to be able to change, does not mean that he's just a cake. No. He has a way of thinking, preserving the old culture, that is also necessary. Then we have to be able to blend those who are liberal, who can, bring in so many varieties and still remain balanced. So we should respect them also. So what we need to find is the equilibrium point, a contingency. You bring some part of those other people's style, you bring some part of the liberal optimism. Because if you go too liberal, you can lose your identity. Like we see cases of where we adjusted some big persons, they adjusted until they adjusted the way of dressing, they adjusted the way of so many things, like we experienced in the Prabhupada Palace of Gold in those days. Till devotees begin to wear robes, and until they begin to get English initiation names, humility das, tolerance Goswami, and the rest. So there should be a point. There should be a point of equilibrium where you can bring the two together, a contingency of the approach, neither the end of this end of the continuum, nor the other end, but a contingency. Whatever is useful from this side, you bring it. You bring some force is needed, some strictness to the old way of doing things is needed. At the same time, there should be some flexibility to accommodate changes. So we have to strategize on how to maintain that approach, contingency approach, then different strokes for different folks, which is situational approach. So this is what I think. Don't expect everybody to.
I think you have to maintain the core
change.
principles.
Yeah.
You see, I tend to look at it from the point of view of Shastra, not in terms of modern thinking. And in terms of Shastra means that you keep your core principles. Core principles cannot be challenged, cannot be changed, but how we apply them in day-to-day circumstances and situations, that we have to be very flexible. I think in simple terms, what you're saying, in simple terms, we keep the core principles. Core principles can never be changed. We cannot change our tilak, we cannot change our neck beads, we cannot change our dress code, we cannot change the way we get our names, we cannot change the way we get initiated, we cannot change the books, we cannot change any of those things. But how we apply them, and sometimes we, like when we talk about the mistakes we made in the early days, it's because we didn't know how to apply them. But the basic principles were clear to us, but we didn't know how to present them. So we tend to blast people, we tend to be arrogant, we tend to... So those things are just par for the course, like we say, you know. But I think we have to keep the core principles, because then otherwise we integrate, but we don't lose our core identity.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Okay, Shumara will come to you, please. I'm sorry. I think what Chaitanya Prema Prabhu just said, I do not think, especially in today's class, I do not think anybody is brushing off whatever ideology somebody may have. All we're discussing is how to see the progression of this movement. And so what Kavikanapur Prabhu said and asked is that if devotees are refusing to accept that some mistakes were made, if we refuse that, then how are we even going to, first of all, make the attempt to desist from repeating the same things we did? And that's what Kavikanapur Prabhu was saying, because there are some of these old devotees still holding on to the fact that what they did in the past are still necessary to be done today, which most of us never agree. So we'll go to Shrimad Prabhu, please. Prabhu, you're on mute.
Prabhu.
Prabhu. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Is my voice clear, Hare Krishna?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we can hear you, Prabhuji.
Okay. What is Prabhu? Advaita Prabhu, you were saying that you were mentioning the core principle that cannot be changed. And then you said dress code cannot be changed. Other things you mentioned. But I believe that this is part of the problem. The problem that we are not able to distinguish, the philosophy, the practice, and where we integrate the ordinary society. So what I'm trying to say is this. No one is going to ask Brahmanas to change their their dress code, excuse me. No one is going to change Brahmanas to change their dress code if they know that they're Brahmanas. And we create and we let it be known, those who are into Brahmanical activities. And now you cannot force dress code on Vaishyas. You cannot force dress code on the congregation. So this is part of the problem. I'm just using this as an example to illustrate what I'm about to say. Now, what I'm about to say is that part of the problem is the dichotomy of the goal. We seem to be confused with what is the goal. Those who think that the goal is just to go back home, back to Godhead, then yes, surrender is the key. Those who think that yes, going back home, back to Godhead it's the ideal, it's the goal, but the society at large have to function cooperatively together. So if the society have to function cooperatively together, then the puritanical, the extreme of purity cannot be imposed. It can only be, emphasized to a class of the society where it belongs. You read chapter 16, text 1 to 3. The different varnas and ashram, their duties were well mentioned. So sometimes we are not applying our philosophy, and then we are making generalized statements about what can be done, what cannot be done. But our philosophy itself does not say that everyone has to belong to one class. So if you're saying that we cannot change dress code, we cannot change this, for who?
I'm talking for the devotee class. I'm talking for the ISKCON internal. I'm not talking for the general population.
Class. For the Brahmanical class.
I wouldn't use that term Brahmanical class.
What do you mean by Brahmanical class?
I wouldn't use that term. Baraha, let me clarify this. Someone may be living in the temple. No, someone may be living in the temple and he may be wearing dhoti kurta like most of us did, and we were not, all of us were not Brahmins. So what
That's
does that
exactly
mean?
what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying, Prabhu.
So basically what I'm talking about, let me clarify this. I'm talking about the ecclesiastical class, the ecclesiastical part of ISKCON. You cannot change.
I agree with you now. I agree that. Now, there's another point here. In the past, we tried to have back to schools, colleges, back to colleges, in some form or the other existing ISKCON disciple course and all that stuff. But what is the purpose of educational system in the society, the normal society? The normal society educate people to fill up roles.
Yeah.
So, and in filling up the roles that is needed in the bigger world, everyone enters into where they can perform, where they feel they're better. Our Bhakta colleges or ISKCON disciples, are they helping devotees to be able to identify what role they can play, with their Krishna consciousness in the larger society? This is not like, I asked a question to Kavichandra Maharaj once on this platform when he was talking about, going back to the farm and growing what you eat and so on. And I said, Maharaj, if this was the goal, why was it that the temple system only encouraged book distribution, talk about book distribution, encourage book distribution, and then just suddenly now you're talking, it's like we're paying lip service to farm, but in the reality, what we're doing is pushing people out to go and do Harinam Sankirtan and collect funds and distribute books. There's a total difference between, if the society really has this as a focus, training people for that. So this is the problem. So we seem to have we have an ideal, but then our practice is different. It's like schizophrenia. Our talks do not match with our action many a time. So this is why I'm saying there is a lack of design.
Okay.
There's a problem of a design in our growth.
What I think is the fan is going in one direction right now, and even if you pull out the plug, it will still keep going. So I would still think that what determines what we do is utilitarian again. So like the idea of Kavichandra Maharaj saying this means that what is more doable is what we have been doing. And it is more doable because it is what we have been doing for the last 50 years. So therefore we tend to go back into that comfort zone. And the other aspects of what you've been talking about is part of a bigger issue of ability to implement. And I keep insisting, or not insisting, but humbly putting my point, is unless you have good quality Kshatriyas, the implementation of any other principles, unforceable implementation, execution is what is, it's not legislative. Legislative may be Brahminical, but even that practical legislation to implement something is always done by the Manus, and they are Kshatriyas. So to implement these things, we will always struggle in our ISKCON until we get very, very strong personalities who can actually implement these things. I asked my Guru Maharaj one thing, and I asked him, I am saying this because maybe I'm not able to completely express, but I'm a fervent student of understanding the role, the interplay of roles between the Brahmana and the Kshatriyas. And in terms, not I'm talking in absolute terms of Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, but I'm talking in terms of the interplay of forces, the interplay of the energies of the Brahmana class and the Kshatriya class together, cooperate together very nicely to implement something. And I think the reasons we fail or reasons we don't succeed enough, to put it in a more Vaishnava way, is because our ability to implement these things falls short. And if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam, most of that's why you are making this comment that I was talking about the Kshatriyas, because the Brahmanas can give the direction, just like the Brahmanas killed Vena. They do away with Vena. They said, enough of this nonsense, Vena. And then they had all kinds of anxieties and worries. So therefore, they went back to the body of Vena, and they churned the body of Vena to create a Kshatriya. Because why? It was required. The Brahmanas were there. All the Brahmanas were there. The Brahminical class were there, but they could not implement, so they needed someone with the quality of a Kshatriya, so they brought Maharaj Prithu out of the body of Vena to implement, to make sure that because otherwise you have deviants, you have the ultra liberals who will do anything for a buck. We call them thieves and rogues, right? And you have, they will corrupt society and they will do anything. So you need danda, you need chastisement of those people, you need proper implementation, proper correction. So unless we have, so I go back to what I was saying and I didn't finish. My spiritual master said, I said, when is the society is going, mainstream society, it's going to become really, really powerfully Krishna conscious. He said, when you have powerful Kshatriyas and they will promote the Varnashram culture or the Krishna conscious culture. And he gave me an example of Maharaj Ashok. Maharaj Ashok promoted Buddhism, and within a very short period, Buddha was preaching for I don't know how many, 100, 200, 300 years, wasn't going very much, right? And he was being challenged by the Sanatanis, by the Brahma Samaj, and all the other different groups in the Vedic culture of India. But then when Maharaj Ashok, he became a Buddhist, Buddhism spread far and wide from the plains, from the mountains of Afghanistan and further on the west to the east of Indonesia and everywhere. So unless you have Kshatriyas to implement, you can have all the Brahmanas because they don't have the power and the authority. They have the authority, but they can only implement and execute the vision through the Kshatriyas. And I think that's why Srila Prabhupada always said that, the GBCs doesn't necessarily have to be sannyasis and they can be grihastas, because at those levels, people are more concerned with productivity, implementation, getting things done. And the Brahmanas and the sannyasis are always more involved with preaching and getting people going up higher up the ladder of Krishna consciousness. It's two different things. With one goal, two different things with one, or two different steps with one goal. I don't know whether I've expressed myself clearly. I'm just thinking loud with all of you.
Well, I think what you just said makes a lot of sense to me, and I think this topic requires special time for elaborate and detailed discussion. But
we'll take one more question or two more questions, and then we'll go.
Yeah, but I think that as devotees, especially devotees of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada came here to do whatever he needed to do to give real Krishna consciousness to the world. He had to do whatever to give Krishna consciousness, but the Krishna consciousness he was giving was unfiltered, unaltered, as pure as it is. So I think that is what we should be doing. We should find ways and means of giving Krishna consciousness to people without changing what it is. But we cannot use the same method for all times. It's impossible. Shri Kavikana Prabhu, please, you may unmute.
Oh, it's Salika Prabhu.
That's Salika Prabhu. Sorry.
Salika Prabhu. Salika Prabhu.
Yes, Salika. We cannot hear you.
Now,
Prabhu.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's actually not a question, but a comment. On the, I was multitasking in the beginning of the class. I'm sorry. I was listening to part of the questions. I had Kavi Kanapu's question and then some subsequent responses. And the last two comments from Srimad Prabhu and ADVAITA Krishna Prabhu, our speaker for today. I think the issue has repeatedly come up on this platform about the past, the present, and the future of ISKCON. And I think that the beginning of growth is when one comes to realize his past. Then he can use the present to develop his future. And like Sahadev Prabhu said, most of the times, as an ISKCON body, not just one region, we're failing to realize that Srila Prabhupada's preaching of Krishna consciousness within the 11 years he had with us was a pioneering moment. And Prabhupada wanted us to scrutinizingly study the scriptures so that we can properly apply Krishna consciousness. And then, like ADVAITA Krishna Prabhu gave a very beautiful advice, example now of the Brahman shunning the body of King Vena. The reality is that who is supposed to lead? Who is supposed to guide? Who is supposed to serve? Our scriptures are very clear on these topics. But the fact is that the way ISKCON started, most of us have somehow or the other, even though, yes, in the life of a preaching organization, there has to be the continuous mood of a pioneering mood, of continuously evangelizing. But the reality is that Prabhupada himself said at a point in time, now it is the time to boil the milk. The fact is that we're no longer a starting organization. This is a 50-year-old organization, and when you look at our ISKCON movement at par with other developing organizations, we realize that, yes, we have the fantastic, very convincing philosophy, but we have failed. The reality is that we have failed, unless we don't want to accept the reality, to
Frozen.
You know what? When Prabhu is saying fail, it's actually the Brahminical way of thinking. It's like because you have higher vision, so whatever you have achieved is not sufficient. I would say that we feel that whatever we achieved is not sufficient. It's not that we failed.
When I say failed, not to say that ISKCON is a failure. I'm not saying it in terms of ISKCON is a failure. I'm saying that our philosophy, these our deliveries in the society, is not measuring because ISKCON has.
Yeah, it's not measuring.
It's not measuring because ISKCON has all it takes to manage the whole universe, because everything that is required to manage the universal management is within our reach. And then we are not able to. And the fact is that, like Prabhu said, the Kshatriyas lead, they manage, the Brahmanas guide. And this has not been clearly defined in our organizational
management settings. We started as a missionary organization in a pioneering mood, and we're maintaining that mood. So it is not assisting us, it's not helping us enough to be able to move forward. And in life, growth is about development to maturity. We are a baby organization 50 years ago, so it is understandable, but we are a 50-year-old organization today. So there are certain levels of expectations that is expected to be, even though we are in Kali Yuga, even though we are in the material world, but for the fact that we have existed for 50 years going forward, it is enough a time for us to start having it together. And that is why sometimes when devotees say we have failed or there was a mistake, the fact is that they're expressing the fact that, yes, this movement has everything, but the fact is that we're not being able to manifest that level of maturity. I mean, in all of our ISKCON settings globally, how many of our global settings, except from few places in India, that you find that ISKCON has a position in major decision-making in the society? That is part of what we are supposed to be doing. But because we don't have that Kshatriyas leading our organizations, most of these yatras, we have a Brahmana taking the role of a Kshatriya. Kshatriya sometimes taking the role of the Brahmanas. And that is where we challenge is. So if we really are looking at this topic, we should be looking at the fact that, yes, the past we have seen, the present determines what our future is going to be like. So we should admit what has happened in the past, try to use the present to create a better future, because in the next couple of years, most of us even talking now will not be here, and the posterity will judge that we were there for 30 years, we were there for 40 years, we were there for 50 years of our lives, and what have we put in place? And that's my contribution.
Okay, can I make a small comment on this?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Before we give, it's like, you look at SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. When someone wants to have a progeny, they go to austerity. They don't marry and go for honeymoon, they go for austerity. Every time. When the service was given to the Prachetas, they went for austerity. When Kardama Muni wanted to have a child, he was engaged in an even Devahuti. So they go for that. Now, to be able to get that kind of, so you know, the seed, you cannot change in the middle. So either someone is born with a seed of a Kshatriya, or they're born with the seed of a Vaishya, or the seed of a Brahmana. You cannot change in between. But we can adapt and we can sublimate all our activities to Krishna consciousness. Yat karosi jajandasi. Yeah, we can do that. Whether we are a Brahmana, Shudra, Vaishya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, Kiva, Vipraki, Banyasi, Shudra, we can do that. So why am I saying this perspective, Sharika Prabhu? Because 50 years is nothing. Our devotees are not even trained to perform Garbhadan Sanskar yet.
Yeah.
In Grihastha Ashram. We're not even able to do the basics of Garbhadan Sanskar. How many devotees in our movement are conceiving for Garbhadan Sanskar, proper Garbhadan Sanskar, and training and teaching? We're not. So 50 years? No, nothing.
We're still baby.
We're still babies.
Yeah.
We have 50 years is like we are 5-month-old baby. So you're expecting a 5-month-old baby to achieve very much? Look in the scope of things, 10,000 years we're going to be, you know. So I think, no, when I think about it like from this angle, you know, how are we going to get that quality of Brahmanas, the quality of the personalities who's going to make a change? Look at what we study in SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM. The quality of personality that is in Shukadev Goswami, the quality of the personality that is in the body, in the life, in the birth of Parikshit Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, or all the other personalities, or Dhruva Maharaj. I mean, these are persons who are born of a certain creed, of a certain quality, of a certain seed, of a certain, they are great personalities who brought in. So this is what's going to make the difference. Like you look at the American culture now, it's failing. Different cities are failing, right? So to make a complete change to that direction that the society is going in, you will require some very powerful personalities. These are always done by personalities. These are always done, like who did the Krishna consciousness movement? It's not a philosophy. It's not a way of life. It's not social circumstances and cultural circumstances that invented the Krishna consciousness movement in its present form. It is Srila Prabhupada.
Yes.
It is personality.
Yeah.
So can you imagine if you had 10 Srila Prabhupada?
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where we you know, so we have to go back to the basics of having children who are born after Garbhadhan Sanskar, of pure parents, and then they will be trained right from young age, depending on the propensity to become these powerful persons. So to me, that's why it's like Krishna conscious, setting up varnashram in the present situations, right, is like trying to manufacture, you know, to tailor up a beautiful suit when the cloth you have is all broken and torn.
So exactly, Prabhu. Thank you very much for this way you put it. And that is why I'm saying that you beautifully actually analyze. And that is why what I think, in my opinion, is that ISKCON at this moment should be realizing that the fact that these are the needs. But like taking it from what Varaj Prabhu said, it looks as if though we're still not clear about what we're supposed to be doing. And that is—
I think it's becoming clearer. And as we progress in the study of our main pramana, because what is going to bring the change is Srimad Bhagavatam.
Exactly, studying.
Right. So are we really good students of Srimad Bhagavatam? We give Bhakti Vaibhava class, half of the students sleep. You know, so, you know, they can't even sit, you know, with the telephone fixed, you know. It's like you're watching a TV, 5 TV sets in front of you. So, you know, so, no, I'm frank, you know, I'm honest. And it's like, you know, we have to really, this is where we can implement the practical philosophy of Krishna consciousness through the books of Srimad Bhagavatam and the studies of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then everything will become slowly clear. Yes, Kavikarna Prabhu.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Yes.
There is one, Kavikarna Prabhu, a second, please. There is a...
Just small thing. I just want small thing, I beg.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Prabhu, thank you very much for your contribution. And Prabhu, one thing I just want to say is that regarding this discussion, it's very, very wonderful. But why is it that the African leaders, they are not participating in the ISKCON leadership sangha that takes place in Mayapur every 2 years? That is the only way we can talk about this thing with other leaders and can bring a tangible difference in the society. That's what I want to ask. Why are the ISKCON leaders are not participating? I know in West Africa only 2 devotees are joining. Maybe it's Grace Srinivas Vanachari and Bhakti Damodar Maharaj, and maybe Taki Sharodeshna Maharaj. Other leaders, temple president, they don't participate in these programs. So why?
Kavi Kanapura, please don't ask that question here.
Why are you not in Mayapur now?
Don't ask that question
I don't go
here.
Myself. I'm not able to answer that question because I don't go myself. I can't answer that question because I stopped going myself 20 years ago. So, so
don't ask that question, please.
Rasalila Mataji.
No, Prabhuji, sorry, there is a question in the chat room. There is a question in the chat room I would like to read to you for you to try to answer. The question is, should we be doing what is doable or what should be done?
What should be done, but we always go to what is doable.
Okay, thank you. So, and then Ras Lila Priya Devi, please unmute.
We'll gravitate to what is easily done because we're always in comfort zone. But enlightened people like Srila Prabhupada, they go to do what should be done.
Yes.
And we should follow in the footsteps.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Raslila, please unmute. Good.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a very enlightening lecture. It sounds like the base of it is to do knowing what is to be done, but finding ways of executing it in a way that would yield a sustainable outcome. So here in the US, I'm sure there are other parts in the world also, there are some children who suffer from certain disabilities. So whether it be ADHD or behavioral issues, which prevent them from being in the same classroom as other kids. And because of that, there are special educators who teach those children the same material, but in different ways, so that they're not deprived of the knowledge that's been imparted onto other kids. And so my question is it wrong to present Krishna consciousness in such a way that it's adaptable, is understood? For instance, Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, his ways was presented in a way that it was not deviating from the teaching of Srila Prabhupada. It was not at all. It was 100% the same. But it was presented in a way that the people of Africa could understand it and could adapt it. And so is that a wrong thing to do, to present it in a way that is not of deviating from the original scriptures, but in a way that will be understood, so that someone can say, okay, I'm suffering enough, and now someone is telling me that this is the way to end my suffering, and so I'll embrace it fully and not be so kind of shied away from it. Is
I
that
understand your
wrong?
question.
Or
No, but that's our tradition anyway. Yatha ditam tathamati. Our tradition is you explain according to our understanding and also according to Desha Kala Patra, time, place, and circumstances. Vyasadeva was advised to re-edit the Srimad Bhagavatam and make it more amenable for the age of Kali. And one of the premises of the question laid to posed to Shuta Goswami by Shaunaka Rishi is, look at our condition. Look at how we are, with small lives. We are always disturbed, we are lazy, we are misguided. So please explain the very essence of these teachings in a way that it's applicable and convenient for us to understand. That's the very essence of it. So look at the commentaries of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada takes the same commentaries and he elaborates it. I have all the commentaries here right in front of me, and he elaborates it further. So what is he doing? He is doing the same thing over and over again. That means that he's taking the same substance and he's putting it into different receptacles. This kala patra. Patra means receptacle. Means those who are able to receive it or the way you present it, right? Either it's a serving tray, or it is a serving bowl, or it is a serving huge container, but the food is the same. So according to time, place, desh means place, kala means time, and patra according to, utility principles, whoever wants to, so according to this, it's always like that. You see, our tradition is a dynamic tradition, Mataji. It's a dynamic tradition. It is not set in stone. And sometimes acharyas say different things, and it sometimes even in slight, I wouldn't say contradiction, but in slightly separate to what others have said, because it is more appropriate. But in their heart, the essence of the truth has not changed, but they presented it slightly even differently. So sometimes even that is accommodated in our tradition. So our tradition is very much alive. It's not set in dead stone. It is according to the understanding of the acharyas. It is according to the heart and the experience
of that tradition, of that truth from the Acharya, and subsequently to the devotees who understand it differently and present it differently. But it is the same absolute truth. No, it is always dynamic. The tradition is dynamic. Like I give you one example, one very, very powerful example. To reconcile the philosophy of Ramanuja, to reconcile the philosophy of Madhavacharya, and the subsequent philosophy of Sakti Parinamavad, that is, energy of Krishna is transformed, it is non-different than Krishna. That philosophy of Achintya Veda Veda Tattva was brought forward by Jiva Goswami. And when was that done? In 1500. And the Srimad Bhagavatam had the seed of that philosophy in the Chatushloki. Right? In the Chatushloki, Bhagavatam, in chapter 2, text 32 to 36, the seed of that philosophy was there. That who developed it to mean Achintya Veda Veda Tattva, simultaneously one and different, which some people from the Madhva Sampradaya say, this is new. What is this? New? So it is a new way of presenting the seed of that philosophy from Chatushloki to Achintya Veda Veda Tattva by Jiva Goswami. Why? Because to give that importance of Krishna being present everywhere in his energies, which is very clear now, but it wasn't so clear before. So it is adapting, it is dynamic. The tradition is dynamic. Maybe it's a little bit academic what I'm saying, but I know you're intelligent enough, you will understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you so much. Remember, Prabhu, I think,
thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Mataji Rasalila, did you grab it? Yeah, what I said?
Yes, Prabhu, I did. Thank you. It made a lot of sense because I've come some devotees actually on social media platform, Facebook especially, would come at me in an attacking way whenever I post like an enlightening post that was written either by Radhanath Swami or Bhaktisiddhanta Swami, which is the same thing that's written in the scriptures by Srila Prabhupada, but then they'll say, this is not the original writing of Srila Prabhupada, and then I will quote something similar to what Srila Prabhupada said, that they're saying the same thing, and just, someone says potato, someone says potato. It's the same vegetable that we're talking about. And so I'm glad that you've re-clarified that point. So thank you, I appreciate it.
I give you another practical example. When Tulasidas, he wrote Ramayana, and it was 1500 something or 1400 something. I have to get the dates right. And there was a big uproar in India because he wrote it in a vernacular. Because original Ramayana is written by Valmiki Muni, and he's written in Sanskrit, proper Sanskrit, and he wrote it in vernacular that everyone who can read it, you can just understand it. It was written in that Awadh Bhasha, Avadi, and said, what is this? This is not, and it was a big uproar. But, the Ramayana that everyone in India and everyone in so many other Hindu communities read, and it is absolutely fantastic reading. Tulsidas, Tulsikrit Ramayana. And it is adapted. So it is the same tradition, same Rama Lila, same Katha, same philosophy presented in a new language. And now Srimad Bhagavatam is being printed in 80 languages. So the patra is changing, the time, place, circumstances is changing, and we're adapting. But it is the same philosophy. So in a micro way also, you have you have macro changes, and you have, changes in small microcosmic situations where you could be like you're talking about the school. So that is a small microcosm there. And there's some changes you can adapt and you can do, but you do not change the essence. But to be able to keep the essence and not change the essence, it requires really deep understanding.
Yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. That's a very beautiful answer. Because those who speak like that this is not Srila Prabhupada's words, if that is the case, then why should anybody give class? Because all we need to do is just read the text, read the paper, bus, we finished. Srila Prabhupada wants us to read the paper and also speak on it, elaborate on it, based on our understanding. Thank you so much. Shivamara Prabhu, please unmute.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
I think this will be the last class. Sorry, question. Prabhuji.
Question.
Yes.
Question and comment.
Please go ahead.
Actually, to support going same line of thought of Rasalila Devidasi, I have a feeling that this debate can go on ad infinitum in ISKCON without any change. Because of just what she said, which I was also thinking about, that several leaders who are like, very, very powerful and very strong about the way forward, were not welcomed. Idananda Maharaj is a good example right now. And even within the mainstream, I have one example of Jayapatak Maharaj establishing and instituting the Congregational Bhakti Vriksha program, which was meant to actually open up ISKCON, but it remains his program. It's never became like ISKCON. So what I'm saying is that Prabhupada had given us ISKCON. And just the same way Prabhupada opted out of Gaudiya Math and tried to implement his guru's instruction, especially how to make this society function, have GBC, etc., print books as focus for printing, and he succeeded. I think the next move for ISKCON, what will be the next space for ISKCON, will be when a leader in ISKCON is able to move ahead and also do something in line with Varnashram and opening up ISKCON to a larger society the way Prabhupada wanted it. But as a society, it looks like we're stuck, because one person's idea would never, become the ideal. There will always be some opposition. Some people want to do it differently. So I'm seeing a future of ISKCON in the direction of individuals who are able to materialize Prabhupada's vision in another way beyond what ISKCON is doing.
It's a very deep point you made. Yeah, so much. So I mean, I cannot speak pros or cons, but there are examples to both sides. Because Srila Prabhupada instituted a body to make sure that as a collegium, the GBC would be able to implement Srila Prabhupada instructions properly. But at the same time, Srila Prabhupada himself moved away from Gaudiya Math to be able to establish a system of collegium. So it cuts both ways in a way. But the person has to be of a certain caliber and to be able to implement that. And he will still be in line with Srila Prabhupada, but he will be completely. So yes, so then how do you define the role of the collegium of the GBC within that? That remains a subject of discussion, I think. It is not clearly defined, not yet, not in terms of implementation, Prabhu. It is still a subject of, because even now in our Krishna consciousness movement, with due respect to all the wonderful Vaishnavas we have on this platform and the worldwide ISKCON, we divided with Diksha Guru's situation. We are also divided in opinions.
I'm from Mauritius and I'm a Buddhist. I am a Christian, a Catholic priest from Nigeria. I am Christian. I'm from Togo.
I'm a Christian, a Catholic from
So
Nigeria.
Salika, you have to unmute. Mute.
Identify myself
Right.
as a Catholic Christian.
So anyway, so and some people want to establish varnashram based on smarta principles, and other people want to establish varnashram based on traditional varnashram principles, and others want to establish Divya Varnashram. We're still not sure which way to go. And the reason we're not so sure which way to go is because we're not enlightened enough. Bhagavatam hasn't actually integrated our heart and mind 100% because it's all there in the books. So I'm thinking, again, we are 50-year-old, which is equal to 5-month-old baby. So we can stop here for now. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the time and the love and the enlightenment. If I may say really something quick to Shimavara Prabhu's question and comment he just made. Yes, I do not think there is anything wrong in somebody stepping outside of ISKCON and continuing Srila Prabhupada's teachings. But preferably, Srila Prabhupada, he wanted us to be together in his house, which is ISKCON. So the main purpose of a devotee doing something is to please the spiritual master. And Srila Prabhupada has told us the way to please him. The way to please him is our togetherness in his movement. So I think that should be our focus also. On this note, we're going to humbly request all the devotees to kindly unmute. And then we all chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra.
Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Pasandubhya Evacha, Patitaram Pavanabhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha.
Pura Virande.
All bloody states,